Okay. Well, kia ora tātou. Welcome everybody to the extraordinary Strategic Planning and Policy Committee meeting for today. We'll just launch straight in. We have Miriata appearing via Zoom. Kia ora, you can hear us? Excellent, brilliant. And needless to say, we are streaming, just to remind you all. Right, kicking right off then. First matter is apologies. Understand Councillor Webber is not here. Beyond that, everybody is around. Mike, were you happy to move? Claire was happy to second. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Next item then is the disclosure of members' interests. I'm not sure that there were any. This is a discussion we've just had, Lou, about at what point do we say that there's an interest? I mean, it's quite high level kind of response now. The same thing was sort of flagged for Claire and potentially these two over here, but we're not making substantive decisions on specific submissions today. We're obviously just seeking endorsement of the whole lot of decisions. So I don't think that there's a conflict, but thank you for flagging it all the same. That being the case, we can skip on then to the first and only item really of any significance on our agenda, which is the long-term plan 2131. Now, Ken, did you want to introduce this item? Welcome, Haven.
Yes, I certainly can. In fact, yeah, I can certainly introduce it with great delight that that we've got to this this particular milestone. We're obviously what we're looking for from this committee after a whole lot of hearings and a whole lot of deliberations to a reasonably late hour of the night. Actually, those deliberations. We're now at a stage where we bring back the document to you for this committee's recommendation through to council in a couple of weeks' time. That we adopt the long-term plan. So look, I'm going to in a few moments hand over to Haven to speak to the report proper. But the one thing I just wanted to cover off is in particularly, I suppose, when I look at Appendix 1. So I guess since that deliberation session, a whole lot of changes have been processed through the long-term plan document. So the finance team has been working very, very hard to achieve those changes. When you look at that table in Appendix 1, my hope is that you can that those are all very, very, very familiar to you because they reflect the decisions that you made during deliberations. But there is one line that and this is on page 19 of the agenda. There is, perhaps, in fact, there's two lines that you may not be familiar with. Okay, so right at the bottom of page 19 of the agenda, you can see NZTA reduced funding, and then the line below that, which absolutely matches that, reduction in sub-roading costs. So look, the one change that we have had to make after those deliberations was something that was effectively forced on us. A very, very late indication from Waka Kotahi, the New Zealand Transport Agency, that they were going to cut our funding for the first 3 years of the LTP by just over $1.5 million in total. So by $530,000 per annum. So look, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate that that announcement was made so late by them. It was subsequent to the deliberations we had. So as officers, we looked at that situation. Have thought that what is appropriate to do is to leave the council funding in. So so not remove any council funding from the equation, but in regard to our transport and roading programs, what we are going to have is obviously $1.5 million less subsidy from the government. So we're going to tweak, I suppose, our roading, our transport program to reflect that reduction. We are confident, the team is absolutely confident that they can do that to the degree that it really doesn't significantly impact levels of service. Certainly there will be no compromise of safety in regard to levels of service. It's just some of the amenity stuff that that because we don't have that 1.5 million, some of that amenity stuff would be lost. But but the team do need a bit of time just to work through that. But in the meantime, we've adjusted the LTP by reducing expenditure by 1.5 million. That's the line with the 3 sets of brackets, and of course, you're reducing the revenue by that 1.5 million, because the signal from Waka Katahi is that they will not be providing that funding anymore. Okay, so look, the rest of it I'll leave to. Although Chair, Madam Chair, I do see a question from a councillor.
Hazel.
Very simple question. That when I was going through all this yesterday, there was one thing that I was looking for, and it just said, and look, you're talking way up here. I'm actually going to ask a question way down here. Because I imagine that if we bring up the playground equipment for Kihikihi, that they're going to say, yes, it's there, but it's in year 7, which is where it is. If we vote to accept this today, are we leaving the playground in year 7, or because the community want it brought back ASAP? And they've said that. So I was looking at a whole lot of other things there, which I thought, oh well, that's all right. But this one in particular, because they have this is a high priority on their list to have some kind of children's playground, because we haven't got one. We haven't got one in Kihikihi. And I've said, well, so if I vote for where it is, that means that you're going to say to me every time when we bring it up, you're going to say, well, that's in year 7, Hazel. And I'm going to say, did you take any notice of that submission to move it somewhere? This is what I just want clear, that I'm voting for what we finished at, which is written down here.
So look, Councillor Barnes, around the table, we certainly, I mean, you certainly took good notice of all of the submissions, including some from Kiiki. But look, during that deliberations process, the result was not that be shifted forward. So so if that is in year 7, actually, I'm taking your word for that.
Well, I think it was 7 or 5.
Taking your word for where it was, but where it was is where it is.
Can I just contribute something? I thought the plan was to do those feasibility studies working with the community in those early years of the LTP. And I recall staff saying, it might have even been you, Ken, I don't know, but when those plans are completed, then there would be an opportunity to revise the timing of those various projects. That's I thought, get those plans done, and then we can have another look at where the spending happens.
And if that's actually going to take a year or 2 or 3 to actually get it done, we still have no playgrounds in Kihikihi.
Because Hazel, tomorrow night we've got the meeting to look at our urban development plan. So the outcomings from that, if the public go through that and rank what's important for Kihikihi, whether it's playgrounds or a new road somewhere, then then that gives council a good steer too.
All of that. What I'm saying is, if I vote for this now as it stands, that's where things have got to stay. So I shall object to that.
Hazel, I think you're able to clarify that for us, please.
So just to clarify that point, the playground is in year 7 at the moment. This playground is largely driven by growth that's coming into Kiki, which is not there at its current state. We also do have some funding for renewals of playgrounds, which we'll be doing following a playground audit, which is currently taking place as we speak. So that priority list we undertaken, and there's the current playground in Rewiwimana Poto.
Oh yeah, 3 things: a swing, a slide, and a broken piece of equipment.
So when we come to opportunity to renew that particular asset in conjunction with the trust there, then we'll be able to prioritise that and see what other renewals can happen there. And as Councillor Gower said, tomorrow night there's the meeting about the urban development plan, which will set out where future playground provision will be.
I should really just apologise for having spent 20 years on council to be actually, if you vote for something, that's where it sticks. You can't actually go past it. And all I'm just making sure that maybe this in my final LTP, that I'm not going to make that mistake. That's all I'm.
Okay, thank you, Hazel. Do we have any other questions before we substantively move on to the introduction there from Haven? No, way you go. Thank you, Haven.
Thank you, Chairperson O'Regan and Ken for introducing the item. Ken essentially covered it all off. Essentially, we're looking for this committee to make a recommendation to council to adopt the plan in 2 weeks' time on the 29th of June, alongside all the associated policies and strategies that we had a number of workshops to refine and develop over the past 18 months. So I was looking to largely take the report as read under the understanding that we're fairly familiar with the journey that we've been through. I guess I was just going to highlight that after the deliberations that we had, the average rates increase for year 1 is now 4.6%, and the average rate increase over the 10 years is now 2.2%. And as Ken alluded to, or as we've discussed previously, some of that has come through from the reevaluation of the 3 waters, and then a little bit to do with the Ltp funding. We also had a discussion with audit yesterday at the Audit and Risk Committee, and I think we've signalled previously that we were going to have a hot audit on the 25th, but Leon's advised us that the audit's actually progressing quite well and quite smoothly. So we're hoping if that continues, they're going to bring that hot review forward to this week. So we might get that verbal clearance a little bit ahead of schedule, which would be good. We'll have it in advance of the 29th. So essentially, yeah, that was where we're at, and happy to speak to anything in the report or take any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Haven. Lou, Andrew, then Claire.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair. Just a few disparities here I have, and I'm rain old issue, but it's Memorial Park again. But I did notice in the detailed movement on the draft budget, the total comes to 4,790,000 or 900,000. 9,000. Whereas on the go back, it's actually 5,075,000. There's quite a disparity in figures here. I'm just looking at the day-to-day expenditure and added them all up. And then there's another figure that comes in. It's called an amended option, which I can't see where that came in, of 1,198,000. Where did that come from? Is that there's an amended? There sort of seems to be a lot of variations there of different figures, and I just wondered where they've all come from. If you go back, it's right.
Sorry, Lou, can you point out specifically what pages you're referring to?
Okay, I'll go back and get them for you. Right. We'll go back to page. No, go back again. Let's get to the bottom of the page. Number 3 of 21, where you've got Lake Te Kuru, you've got all of the key issues. Okay, Memorial Park, they've got it reduced to 575. Okay, then if you go along. We'll come along here, and on page number 10, it is, yeah, number 10, we see an amended option number 2, previously not included. You see that? I'm wondering what that is. And then if you come along a little bit further, and this is where we've got detailed movement and draft budget, and to page, again, page 15, I think it is, yeah, 15 of 21. You look at Memorial Park and you can see the actual expenditure going through to 10 years. And that comes to a sum total of 4,709,000. So it's quite disparate. There's quite a lot of disparities here. Just asking.
I'm actually not following because I think I don't have the diligence, so I'm not across the page numbers.
Seems to be a lot of variations.
Yeah, CapEx and OpEx.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about CapEx and OpEx, but this is just says detailed movement draft budget. That's the one I'm looking here. And there's no mention of CapEx or OpEx.
Yeah, capital is the page 14, or sorry, page 18 of our agenda. And then over the page, it's got operating, and Memorial Park's in there as well. However, I'm with you, Lou, because I've got some questions on it too.
Yeah, I was just wondering all the variations.
Yeah, because we haven't been told what's covered in that operating budget, what the work will be. She asked the question during deliberations whether or not that 5,075,000 had operating in it, and I was told no, it was all capital. So I'm a bit surprised to see it split out now with operating, and we have no idea what is covered with that operating budget.
All right. Okay. Look through the chair. Sorry, this is a little bit difficult because I don't have either Deborah or Sarah in the room. I am pretty confident that the numbers will be all right and the numbers do tally up. But look, I would have to. I would have to spend a little bit of time getting my head around them without them as being a close reference point. And unless Brad, you've got a little bit of insight into this, given it's around Memorial Park.
Yeah, kia ora. What I have, not particularly over this current document, there is an OPEX element to Memorial Park work. I do wonder if some of this disparity that you might be seeing is a reflection of the asset sales, because some of it, or the majority of it, is asset sale related, and then there is a small component that's not. So I do wonder if that's where we're seeing that difference, but I probably need that clarification from Deborah, which I'm happy to go and try and find her if you need to.
I also, clear.
So the operating detail in that budget says it's going to be funded from asset sales. And this is a question I've flagged with Ken. Why are we funding operating costs through asset sales? Surely that is not in line with our revenue and financing policy.
Yeah, so look, generally it isn't, but from time to time we do that. We do that with in full knowledge that is what we're doing. And I guess what we are doing is we are, in regard to Memorial Park, we are making significant improvements that will last over a number of years. So we do that from time to time. Look through the chair. Like I say, this is a difficult position because Deborah and Sarah are all over these numbers, but unfortunately neither of them could be here today. I am really happy to commit to, I mean, today is a recommendation that this goes through to council for adoption. If that is subject to a full explanation of some of these concerns that have been expressed today, I'm very comfortable with that, and I will make sure that I arrange those explanations to happen at council in 2 weeks' time. Yeah, so if that's so I'd suggest that to you, Chair, that we're happy to commit to that.
I know that there was, and I asked Sally Sheedy about a difference in terms of the Memorial Park expenditure that was apparently conflicting, but within the document, the earlier figure was the 5,075,000 odd thousand, and then a later figure was 5,699,000 odd thousand, and apparently that's due to the addition of inflation over 2 years.
Right.
So, that's been squared away, but I know what you mean, Claire, about the sales, using sales of assets to fund operational matters. But I'm comfortable with Ken's assurance. Claire?
Yeah, well, I just had a bit more detail that's needed because we haven't seen that operational budget. I don't know if it matches a table that we had during the deliberations of what the open spaces staff said. This is what we're planning. It's just I've had questions from the community group about what will be covered in those first years. Because we actually don't know. We haven't had that detail because we were told there wasn't any operational content. Well, I was understanding that it was just asset sales, and so it was to do with capital. So I just like some reassurance what that operational budget is covering, because I have had some questions about the repair of the stone wall and whether or not work on the pond has been brought forward so that stone would come from the pond and be used in the wall and stuff like that. It would be just really good to have some clarity on that. Yeah.
Okay. Look through the chair. We just are not in a position to answer these questions today. These are really, really specific questions that, like I say, I'm not in a position to answer now, and in fact haven't got the appropriate staff who can answer those. So look, I'd like to ask from the chair that we have these very specific questions, and I say we'll come back with very specific answers, so that when this is adopted in a couple of weeks' time, you're really, really clear with the answers to the questions. But I would ask like Councillors Brown and Councillor Zapia, if we can, like outside this meeting, we'll arrange to know exactly what the questions are and answer them.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've still just got one more other point on the Memorial Park.
Can I just interrupt just quickly before you go on there? In terms of the timing issues you were raising around the stonework being used from the pond to go to the wall, I asked,
possibly.
I'd asked this of Sally, and she said that it was a staff assumption that they realise now is not possible to be made, and that that they will work on getting that timing accurate. But the website setting out that stuff has now been amended to reflect that that's not likely to be able to be possible.
That's really reassuring.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So your next point, Claire?
Yeah. So the next point is on page 7 of our agenda that lists issue 4, Memorial Park. I was at quite pains to get from Sally when she was presenting to us that the plan would be progressed in partnership not only with Mana Whenua and the RSA, but also the community group. So that's missing from the description, and I really feel it needs to be included. And I did get an assurance from Sally that there was every intention of staff to work with that maintenance group or whatever terminology it's using now. And at the moment, it just looks like they will not be.
I think, Claire, if I may answer that, my understanding is that these were the key issues, that at the time the key issues were drafted in terms of the format and the ambit, if you like, around who was consulted, the stakeholders. That group wasn't in creation, so it this here references back to that earlier concept plan, and that there was an agreement that they would be noted somewhere in our documentation, that they would be included, but perhaps not in terms of the wording as it relates to issue 4 as a key issue that we consulted on.
Yeah, well,
do you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, Susan, but I disagree with that. I think to say that to ensure that key aspects of the plan can be progressed. So it's not talking about the consultation, it's talking about the implementation. And I will not be able to vote in favour of this if it remains without the inclusion of then the community group, because it's completely different to what Sally assured me when I was expected to vote in favour of the concept plan.
Brad, are you able to help us on that point?
Kia ora. So yeah, we do have multiple stakeholders with that park. Obviously, we've got partners as well. So our iwi partners, we were definitely on the same page with, and the RSA as a stakeholder, and then the community group as well. I think Sally, from my discussions with her, is very keen to progress work with them, as long as we all share the same objectives and have some sort of formal MOU or something, so we're all on the same page with that.
Look, on this point, my memory says that it was brought up at the time we were deliberating, and I can't remember if it was Debbie or Kirsty or Sally saying that they couldn't alter the issue, the wording of it at this point for technical reasons, presumably, but that there was a commitment to consult and go forward with all stakeholders, including the now formed community group in relation to Memorial Park. And personally, I'm happy that that will in fact take place.
And I quite agree with what Susan and Brad have said. I feel confident in what it says in here, and I'm happy to vote with it as it is.
On page 588, it does say that council will ensure the views of the community and stakeholders, including the RSA and Mana Whenua, are understood.
Just through the chair, just back to that conversation, my recollection is that that group that you're talking about was going to be noted somewhere. There was another document or something, and they were going to be noted. So I guess what I want to see is where is it? Where is it noted? They were specifically noted. That's that.
My absolute recollection too, because I was the one that asked the question, Are they absolutely there? And the answer I got, I thought, what did she just say? It was so full of something else. It wasn't a yes or a no. I wasn't quite sure where it was going to land and where it was going to appear.
Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair, this is Kirsty speaking. I'm sorry I'm not there in person, but that discussion happened as part of the approval of the concept plan. And Sally did indicate that reference would be made in relation to that concept plan as it was finalised, that group had been part of the process. Along with other changes that were being made, for example, the title of the document. So she gave the assurance that that would be reflected in the documentation, and certainly that it was the intention that that group would be part of future discussions and work, and she made reference to meetings that were scheduled to be held.
Oh, look, thank you so much, Kirsty, for jumping in there. It gave us a bit of a fright, but that's exactly
my apologies.
No, that was exactly, as soon as you started talking, I thought to myself, actually, no, that was the concept plan discussion rather than the LTP. So thank you for that clarification. Claire and then Mike.
Yeah, so I also recall that there were restrictions around changing the wording of the concept plan so that the stakeholders could not be changed. However, with this LTP summary, we don't have those constraints. And I'm just asking that we put in that the intention is that also the community group is worked with. Just for clarity. And
can I
Claire, no, just hold on a minute. I'll just read, Joe's just found for me the recommendation that we resolved in terms of the concept plan was to adopt the final Memorial Park concept plan subject to editorial typographical amendments and to include reference to the Friends of the Memorial Park and the War Memorial Park Maintenance Group in the document. So it is to be recorded within the concept plan document as well as the name change of the War Memorial.
Can I just make one amendment?
Lou and then
Sorry,
Roger.
Madam Chair, they're not called Friends of Memorial Park. They're actually called now the War Memorial Maintenance Committee. That is their official name. So if you get that correct, it is the correct grouping. So they call themselves quite a different group name now, and have formally formed a new committee. Okay, so they are now, they've got a group, and they are meeting with RSA and Manawa Whenua. So we meet collectively. Okay, so we will be discussing things.
So the recommendation can't be changed now because it's already been passed, but I think we included both names because the group did change its name over time. That's my recollection. Yeah. Roger.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have sympathy with Claire's view on this, and particularly reflecting back on what Hazel said, that once it's in the LTP, it's in the LTP, and that's it. And if there is no reference to the community group in the LTP, then it's not there. And I think that's wrong. I think it should have reference to the community group. So however it's achieved, I really would like to see some reference there that they are included.
Well, it is referenced in the draft concept plan that relates to the War Memorial Park, which is your fundamental document about how that park is developed going forward.
But it's not in the LTP.
No, but they appear as a stakeholder and community to consult with in the LTP alongside RSA and Mana Whenua. My feeling is that we've actually discussed this matter that many times, and we've addressed, we know these people, this group are passionate about the park, and there's certainly been a fair amount of discussion around their involvement in the development of that plan and the ongoing implementation of it. I'm comfortable with where it's referenced and recorded within the actual concept plan itself. The LTP, I mean, you all know we were here 4 days talking about it and hearing about it. I think there's a lot of really good stuff that we've covered from, east to west that's really comprehensive. And my feeling is that this is something that is reasonably minor in the context of things and not sufficient to tip over our agreement to adopt it today, in my opinion. I mean, we have assurances from staff that they will continue to work with them where appropriate. It's referenced not specifically by name, but they're certainly captured by way of being community and stakeholders within the LTP, and the draft concept plan itself refers to them by name. That's good enough for me. personally. So unless there's any substantive discussion that's going to move or oppose that view right now, I suggest we carry on. No? Are you happy with that? Haven, have you anything else for us?
Nothing further.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to express two things. Firstly, how disappointing it is to have Waka Kotahi take $530,000 out of the first 3 years, and at such late notice, and my sympathy for the staff who have got to adjust the projects. It's not going to be easy, and it will impact on levels of service to some degree. It clearly has to. But that is something that we just have to deal with. So as I say, my gratitude to the staff who've got to deal with that is I'd like to express. The second point is, and it came up in audit and risk yesterday, our LTP was impacted negatively at quite a late point by the revaluations being very substantially more than what they had been in the past and what was expected. And this is, I guess, is a potential warning for the future, and our 10-year projected rate rises. That sort of thing is out of our control. If it happens again, then we may well be forced into higher rate rises.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Philip, did you have a comment?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'll get to my question in a minute, but with regards to NZTA, it's not surprising really when they're into a law themselves too. So, but my quick question was, I've had a few submitters say that they've had no replies from council with regards to their submission. What's the process then? When do they get a written response, and when do they get that?
Correct. They will have received an acknowledgement response, and then after the final LTP is adopted, we'll send them decision letters. So depending on how they made their submission, they'll either get it more of a high level one if they didn't provide any comments and they went through the consultation document and essentially just ticked the preferred options. They'll get more of a, here's the outcome of the deliberations. If they've made a specific submission on a submission point, then they'll get a tailored response to what they've commented on. And they will receive those after the final adoption on the 29th of June.
And thank you. And you know, you've got a conflict of interest on a few things, but if a decision didn't go their way, are they able to appeal and have what time? We've got 2 weeks. If the decision didn't go their way with regards to their submission and what they requested, are they able to appeal? And we've got 2 weeks.
Ken may address that.
Yeah, look, an LTP document is a council document. It's a council plan. You know, you guys basically sign off that document. Obviously, a really key part of the process is engagement, consultation with the community. So yeah, the community have their chance, obviously, to have their say. They can say that you know, they can have that say in writing. They can have that say by coming in to the chambers during the hearings. I mean, we spent 4 days hearing from the community, but then at the end of the day, after hearing that, after deliberating on that, it is you people around this table that make the decision, and you lock that into the document. So so I mean, the community can potentially come back at future opportunities, but you know, we need to land this document. It's a statutory requirement for this LTP to be adopted by the 30th of June. Our intention is to basically adopt it on Tuesday the 29th of June, the day before that statutory deadline.
Through you, Madam Chair, Kirsty again, just to add to what Ken has said, unlike a resource consent process, there are no appeal rights with the development of a long-term plan through the Local Government Act. The only legal remedy available to anybody would be judicial review if they felt that council had not followed due process. And I think that we feel very much assured that elected members have followed due process in reaching decisions relating to the development of this long-term plan. So in short, the answer is no, there is no appeal right to submitters. Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsty. Roger.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you very much. I'm still concerned about the non-inclusion of the long-term plan and the concept plan, that you feel you're personally happy with that inclusion. Is it possible to have a minuted note in the minutes that says that the item was discussed and that that assurance can be recorded in the minutes rather than the document changed?
I don't have a problem with that. I think that's fine. I'm happy for that to be minuted. I mean, it's been discussed. Yeah, Claire.
It would have been, the discussion could be minuted, but my issue with it is that it's very likely that the wording that is in those tables is going to be lifted and used for communication purposes. So anyone reading that made one of those, submissions, wanting community input into the development of the Memorial Park will think, oh, we're not included, and they're going to get really annoyed with us. So that's one of the reasons why it's possible to make a change to include that in the community group. But for some reason, people around this table don't think it's the right thing to do. So that's one of the reasons why I feel it's important for it to be there. So simply not just noting that it was discussed, but it's pretty clear that that text is going to be used when we let the community know what we've decided.
Ken.
Yeah, so look, I just wonder, Kirsty, look, can you just can you just express a view here in regard to what you've just heard from Councillor St Pierre, in regard particularly to the communication that will be going out in the first week of July to all of the submitters on the Memorial Park issue, and particularly in regard to indicating an ongoing involvement with this group.
Sure, through you, Madam Chair. So a couple of things to note. As Joe was able to clarify through the providing the minutes from the meeting where the concept plan was approved by elected members, there will be reference to the maintenance group. So the LTP funding, essentially the LTP is our contract with the community, and it provides the funding for our activities and services, as you all appreciate. And what is being approved here is funding to give effect to the implementation of that concept plan, which will reference mana whenua, the community, and is going to specifically reference this group. I think in terms of the communications that are sent out to submitters, Haven talked earlier about a template document, if you like, being the key facts being sent to those submitters who have provided pro forma submissions, ticking the box on the submission form, or providing a very simple submission. That will include specific reference to each of the issues in the consultation document, Memorial Park being one, and what we are proposing there, that it will provide quite a detailed narrative. So certainly it can be referenced in there, and make reference also, I would expect, to the subsequent approval of the concept plan. And then there will be more tailored responses to organisations and individuals who've provided quite comprehensive submissions. So we will be providing them with that standard response, but also going into more detail around specific submission points that they've made. So the intention is to be able to tell the story as to how this has developed. We're wanting this to be user-friendly. We've had significant input from Charlotte and the team in relation to comms and engagement through this whole project, and really keen to break down barriers and for the community to feel that they've been part of this development of this plan and that their views have been heard. I don't know that there's more that I can add, Ken, but I hope that that has provided some clarification.
Thanks, Kirsty.
Well, I just, sorry about this.
Claire.
It's just that
And then
wasn't
Marcus.
exactly what I was referring to. I wasn't referring to the individual responses to submitters. I was thinking more that there's likely to be a spread in the newspaper or, you know, a summary document of the LTP that's out there for everyone and on our website. That's what I thought. This wording, which is on page 7, our agenda, is going to be useful. So, Kirsty, is that the case?
So through you, Madam Chair, I wonder, is Charlotte in the room and whether Charlotte's able to assist? We can do a joint effort here, Charlotte.
Yes. It goes without saying that we have a whole campaign to close the loop on our long-term plan once it is adopted. So there will be quite comprehensive communication going out through all of our usual channels to make sure that people have the right information and also have an opportunity to clarify any queries that they have.
So through you, Madam Chair,
Kirsty,
I just wonder, there was quite a bit of confusion around Memorial Park, and from when we went out to consult and hearings and deliberations, then there has been a decision made by elected members to approve the concept plan. So that needs to be part of the story linked into the long-term plan, not in isolation. Those two things come together here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Marcus.
I agree with what Susan has said earlier, and we just seem to be going around and around in circles and batting us over the head, not getting anywhere. I think what we've come up with is a good solution, and I certainly have no problems with the with what's in there in the recommendation.
I was just going to say I appreciated that extra detail given by Kirsty and Charlotte, because that has alleviated some of my concerns that there will be more wording, not just based on what's in the agenda today. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Claire. So was there anything else that anybody else wanted to discuss and raise before we turn our minds to the recommendations appearing on pages 5 and 6 of our agenda? Claire?
On page 12, we have the rates for our targeted ward rates and also our water rates. So I don't recall seeing anything about what the proposed increases are for. I'm not so worried about the targeted ward rates because I think we can pick that up from the indicated properties, but are there any increases proposed for the potable water and raw water rates? Because it'd be really good to have, last year's rates in there.
Look, through the chair, look, I don't have that information directly on hand. Look, when we publish this table, we've been publishing these tables for years now, and we only ever have the the relevant rate for the year that we're talking about. So it's it's not unusual that we're not providing the comparative. I know there has been and I do recall during a relatively recent time, Deborah talking about a bit of a spike, definitely in the wastewater space, more so than the water space, but definitely in the wastewater space there was some increases. But look, again, I just don't have that comparative table on hand.
Usual that we wouldn't have actually had that information to consider as part of the LTP. That's all, because we usually, like for annual plans, we usually have it. Yeah, that's all. So, we're asking to sign this off today, but we don't actually know, what increases are actually being imposed.
So look, through the chair, we've certainly told you that at the high level. I mean, our headline number that we go out to the community with, we talk at length with you as councillors about that. That headline number. That's one we talk about. As Haven said, that's 4.6% in year one. It's 2.2% across the 10 years. That's really where our focus is. That's the full story. I mean, obviously there's several components here, but that's really where our focus is, and in fact always is in the 10 or 11 years that I've been at council. Appreciating that there are some sub-components here.
Jim?
Madam Chair, look, I can't put my finger on it, but I know for a fact that in our 10-year plan now, there is a table in there
that has the sewerage and water charges over the 10 years. So,
Yes.
so I'm sure, and I'm only talking at the moment the 18 to 28 one that I've been looking at, but it's the same format. So I would imagine that that's going to carry on. So those charges are there, and it's figures that I've been looking for over the last few months to just try and see what our potential increases in costs are going to be compared to what happens with the three waters. So I know for a fact that table is in there somewhere, but I couldn't just tell you where it is. So I'm sure that information is in the document.
Yes. So look through the through the chair. So if you go to so what page of the agenda is this? This is sorry. So page 21 of the agenda. So you can see the indicator properties there. So so look, you can see a breakdown of the rates. Looking at the current year that we're in now versus year one, and you can see a breakdown into fixed targeted rates, into UAGC and capital value rates. So look, that's that's a bit of a breakdown. Yeah, true. It does not have the water rates, because of course the water rates are subject to to usage. Yeah, they're a volumetric rate. Although they do come through in the in the headline numbers in terms of an estimate there. But we deliberately do not put water rates into the indicator property tables because of course usage can vary so much from household to household.
Okay. Yeah, any other questions? Comments? No. So that means we then will go to page 5 and 6 of our agenda, and I have recommendations from A to J. I think we're probably best to deal with them all independently, just for the sake of being thorough. Just point of clarification on B, it relates to a fluoridation response, which Haven, I don't know if anybody had any questions for Haven on it. It's obviously all in the report there. Beyond that, everything else is pretty obvious what we're addressing today. So the first recommendation there is that we firstly receive Haven's report. And I have somebody's happy to move that. Marcus will move it. Who will second it? Liz, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. The second recommendation is to approve amending the staff response to submitter, whose number there is in respect of that fluoridation response, and it appears in section 6 of that report. Can I have somebody's happy to move that for me? Liz, Andrew and Liz will second. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Recommendation C, we delegate the authority to Chief Executive to approve any minor amendments required to the list of submitters by category with staff responses, in case we find any little typos and what have you there. Marcus and Lou, all those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. The paragraph D approves and recommends to Council the changes to the performance framework. I'm happy to move that from the chair. Mike will second that. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Recommendation E, approve and recommend to Council for the adoption at its meeting in June the significance and engagement policy. Bruce is happy to move. Claire's happy to second. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Paragraph F over the page, approve and recommend to Council for adoption at its meeting in June the revenue and financing policy. Andrew, happy to move. Mike's happy to second. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Recommendation G, approves and recommends to Council for adoption at its June meeting the remission and postponement of rates and water charges policy. Jim's happy to move. Mark's happy to second. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Paragraph H is to approve and recommend to Council for adoption at its June meeting the Treasury Management Policy. Claire's happy to move. Mark's happy to second. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. The J then is approve and recommends to Council for adoption at its meeting in June the Development Contributions Policy. Lou's happy to move. Mark is happy to second. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Sorry, it's aye. Yeah. And then the final one that we approve and recommend to Council for adoption, the Waipa District Long-Term Plan 2021 to 31, including but not limited to the funding impact statement, financial strategy and infrastructure strategy. we've, yeah. It's written down, yeah. So Jay, Mike's happy to move. I'm happy to second. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Lovely. So I believe that brings this meeting to a conclusion.